Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
Deep beneath the skin of the earth, where sunlight never wanders and silence takes on a heavy warmth, molten rivers drift slowly unseen. These flows of liquid rock magma are not frantic, not angry. They move with patience, with a wisdom only the deep can know. This is where time breathes differently. A minute stretches like a season, and a century curls up like smoke. For thousands, sometimes millions of years, the molten heart waits quietly, pressing against the crust, as though testing whether the moment to rise has come. Imagine standing at the edge of a sleeping volcano. The land hums faintly beneath your feet. There are no flames, no sounds of destruction, just wind moving through dry grasses and the occasional hush of a bird's wings overhead. But below, far below, a slow preparation is underway. Magma pools in chambers, swirling with minerals and memories, bits of ancient crust melted down, reshaped by pressure and heat. It is like the earth is dreaming beneath you, storing all its secrets in liquid stone. Lava, when it finally surfaces, is not a scream, it is a transformation. It pours out not to destroy, but to renew, to cool and become something new. When it meets the air, it surrenders its heat and becomes basalt, a dark rock with hidden shimmer. Basalt doesn't boast. It lies quietly, shaping coastlines, making islands, holding stories in its weight. You've seen it before, maybe without knowing. Black sand beaches, jagged cliffs, deep ocean floors. These are all the fingerprints of lava that once moved like time. Some eruptions are sudden, yes, but even then they are the result of patient gathering. The volcano does not act out of impulse. It is more like a deep exhale that has waited too long. And when it breathes out, the land listens. Plants vanish for a while, animals flee, the sky darkens with ash. But then something gentle happens, new land is born. In days or weeks, shoots of green find cracks in the cooling crust. Insects return. Birds circle. What was hot and wild becomes a nursery. Scientists study lava flows not just to understand eruptions, but to trace the Earth's history. Each layer tells a tale of a different age, what the climate was like, what gases filled the air, how fast the crust was moving. Basalt holds these memories like pages pressed in stone. Sometimes tiny bubbles are frozen inside, the last breaths of ancient air. Sometimes crystals shimmer in the rock, formed slowly as the lava cooled. These aren't just rocks, they are time made solid. And yet, for all its weight, lava teaches softness. It shows us that transformation requires letting go of form. Magma does not cling to its shape. It becomes what it needs to be, flowing when heated, solid when cooled. It listens to its environment. It is shaped by what surrounds it. Just like us, it can carry heat for a while, but eventually it must cool, must rest, must change. And in that resting, it becomes something strong enough to hold oceans or cradle forests. Even the ash, the fine dust left behind, has its purpose. It travels far, riding winds across continents, feeding distant soils. It carries nutrients that awaken roots and spark new growth. A forest can bloom in the memory of fire. A field can ripen because of dust that once floated from a volcano half a world away. In this way, nothing is wasted. Even destruction becomes part of life's long conversation. There is a kind of peace in knowing that lava doesn't rush. It does not fear time. It does not regret waiting. It reminds us that some things are meant to move slowly, that pressure can build not to harm but to prepare us for change. And when that change comes, it may feel fiery, it may feel sudden, but it leaves behind a new surface on which life can begin again. So when you look at an old volcano, one that hasn't erupted in your lifetime, one that seems as still as stone, remember this: quiet does not mean empty. Beneath the silence, movement hums. Beneath the stillness, something flows. The earth is always becoming. And we, like lava, are always changing shape. Let's drift deeper now, into the slow conversation between rock and time. Basalt, the dark stone born of lava's patient cooling, holds more than just mineral weight. It holds the memory of flow. Every ridge and crack along its surface is a soft echo of movement, a record of where heat became stillness. Touch a piece of basalt and you are touching something that once moved like water, glowed like flame, and then rested long enough to become solid. It is a story that begins in the unseen chambers of the earth and continues in the shape of cliffs, islands, and deep-sea plains. Basalt landscapes are not loud. They do not demand your attention like snow-capped peaks or flowering meadows. But walk across a basalt plain and you can feel the history beneath your feet, slow, vast, and old. Each step takes you across millions of years. There are places in Iceland, in Hawaii, in the ocean's deepest valleys where the world is mostly made of basalt. It lies like a quiet foundation beneath more dramatic forms, supporting without boasting. This is how the earth remembers fire, through stillness. And it is not just the earth that remembers. Life responds, reshapes, reclaims. Lichen is often the first to touch new basalt, weaving itself into the pores of the rock. It does not need soil. It thrives on stone and light and air. From there, moss follows, then grasses, then forests. All of it slow, all of it unhurried. This is not the bloom of springtime or the burst of summer. It is the careful building of ecosystems from scratch, where every leaf, every root must earn its place. Lava reshapes the land, but life patiently redraws the map. The movement of lava isn't just about destruction and creation, it's about connection. When lava flows from a volcano, it links the deep interior of the earth with the surface, bridging layers that rarely touch. The crust and the mantle meet in a dance of heat and transformation, and in doing so, they reveal something important, that what is hidden can come to light, and what is deep can shape what we see. Just as thoughts from our deepest selves can rise and change how we move through the world. Scientists who study lava speak in gentle terms: flow rate, viscosity, cooling curves. They do not speak of violence but of transition. They chart how the lava slows as it spreads, how gases escape, how minerals form. In their diagrams, you can see the grace of it, the rhythm. Some flows stretch for miles, others for just a few feet, but all leave behind trails of change. And these trails are studied like you might read the lines in a tree trunk or the ripples in sand, clues about how time passed, how the world moved. Volcanoes themselves are not all the same. Some are tall and steep, their lava thick and slow to move, like Mount Fuji or Mount Rainier. Others are broad and low, their lava runny and fast, like the shield volcanoes of Hawaii. And each shape tells a story of what lies below: how hot the magma is, how much gas it holds, what minerals it carries. Some lava is rich in iron and magnesium, flowing easily. Some is thicker, cooler, slower, with more silica. Each eruption is a signature, a unique whisper from the Earth's depths. There is something deeply human about lava, too. We carry heat inside us, pressure waiting. We change shape over time. We cool and settle. We erupt. And we rebuild. The land mirrors us, or maybe we mirror it. Our emotions rise and fall like magma chambers, filling and releasing. Our memories cool into shapes we walk on for years. And in our quietest moments, when we feel most still, something beneath is always stirring. Basalt teaches us endurance. Once it cools, it stays. It does not wash away with rain. It does not blow with the wind. It takes thousands of years to wear down, to soften, to turn to soil. It resists time. And yet, even as it endures, it changes, it weathers, it cracks. Seeds fall into its crevices. Water seeps through. Life makes a home. Slowly, even basalt becomes part of the living world. It surrenders its strength not in defeat but in sharing, in allowing. And the ash, the fine floating dust from eruptions, reminds us that even what seems scattered has purpose. Ash can cool the skies, dimming sunlight for a season. It can fall like snow across vast lands, changing the chemistry of lakes and forests. In some places, ancient layers of volcanic ash now nourish vineyards, make wine possible. In others, they preserve the prints of animals long gone, like fossils pressed into time's soft hands. A single eruption, once feared, becomes a chapter in life's long unfolding. So much of what we call solid, land, rock, soil, began as something that flowed. This is the quiet lesson of the volcano, that what feels permanent may have once moved like water, that what feels still may hold a memory of fire. And that change, when it comes, is not always an end. It is often a beginning in disguise. Now imagine standing again at the base of that silent mountain. Nothing stirs, the grasses move softly, but you know now what lies beneath. You know the depth of time, the slowness of change, the patience of fire. And you know that in every stone you touch, every path you walk, there is a record of motion, a history of heat, a promise of return, not in haste, but in the fullness of time. Let the stillness settle now as we drift to the final part of this quiet journey. The lava has cooled, the ash has fallen. The land, once trembling with movement, now lies in thoughtful silence. But this silence is not empty. It is full of meaning, shaped by what came before. Just as a lullaby is shaped by the breath between its notes, the earth holds its music in the pauses between eruptions. And in those pauses, something profound unfolds, healing, remembering, becoming. Walk across a cooled lava field and you may not see it at first, but life is already beginning again. Tiny ferns, their leaves delicate and green, press through cracks in the stone. Their roots, impossibly gentle, reach into the cooled blackness, guided only by instinct and light. Rainwater gathers in shallow pockets, shimmering in the sun, carrying with it dust, spores, and the promise of new beginnings. Insects flit across the surface. Small birds arrive, curious. The story of the volcano continues, not with fire but with softness. Basalt is not just a stone, it is a foundation. In places where it dominates the landscape, it forms the ground on which civilizations are built. Cities have risen atop ancient lava flows. Roads wind across hardened magma, leading people through valleys that were once rivers of fire. Beneath the houses, beneath the footsteps of millions, lies the memory of something once wild. And yet few think of it. Few pause to imagine that the rock beneath them once glowed, once moved, once roared. But perhaps that is the beauty of it, that something so powerful can become so gentle, that something born of pressure, heat, and eruption can now hold the quiet weight of everyday life. It reminds us that we too are capable of change, that we can soften, that we can carry our past without being trapped by it. The basalt does not deny its fiery origins, but it does not live in them either. It simply supports quietly, strongly, without needing to explain itself. Ash, too, plays a role in this unfolding. It seeps into the soil, fine and light, carrying minerals that awaken life. In some places, entire forests owe their richness to ancient eruptions. Trees grow tall where ash once fell thick. Fields bloom with color where the earth was once gray. Farmers know this. They speak of volcanic soil with reverence, knowing it feeds the roots more deeply. From destruction, nourishment. From the sky's dark veil, a secret gift for the ground. Scientists tracing these cycles speak of deep time, geologic time, where a moment is a million years and patience is everything. They study cores of cooled lava, slicing through them like pages in a very old book. They read the temperatures captured in crystal formations, the direction of past magnetic fields frozen in iron minerals, the carbon trapped in ash layers. And through this, they learn how the earth breathes, how it shifts, how it remembers. But the volcano speaks in more than just data. It speaks through shape, color, silence. A collapsed caldera, wide and quiet, holds still water that mirrors the sky. A lava tube, now hollow and dark, becomes a shelter for bats or a passage for wind. A pumice field, soft underfoot, tells of lava that frothed and bubbled like boiling soup before freezing in mid-motion. These are the soft-spoken stories that do not shout but endure, waiting to be noticed. Even the names we give to volcanoes tell part of the tale. Some are named for gods, for spirits, for legends, others for their shape or their silence. And yet, no matter the name, they all share something eternal, the power to shape and to yield, to erupt and to rest, to remind us that nothing lasts forever in its current form, and that's not a sorrow, it's a song. Think now of your own inner volcanoes, the places within where heat gathers, where pressure builds, the moments when you feel something rising, anger, sorrow, joy, creativity. These too are eruptions, and just like lava, they are not always destructive. Sometimes they are needed to clear old ground to make room for new growth. Sometimes they are the only way to speak what has long been held inside, and after them, like the land itself, you can rest, rebuild, renew. We often think of calm as the absence of fire, but the earth shows us another way. Calm can be what comes asterisk after asterisk the fire, what remains when the lava has cooled and the dust has settled. It is a different kind of peace, not untouched but transformed, not empty but full of what it took to become still. In this way, a volcano does not end when it goes quiet. Its silence becomes the next chapter, and the land it leaves behind holds stories deeper than words. So as this story softens to a close, remember the lessons of the lava. That time moves not just in clocks but in flows. That fire can become stone, and stone can hold life. That patience and pressure can create beauty beyond measure. And that beneath every quiet surface, something ancient is always listening, always waiting, always becoming. And perhaps, if you ever find yourself walking across dark stone under a quiet sky, you'll pause and feel it too, that faint, steady hum. The memory of motion, the promise of change, the gentle truth that even the fiercest fire can leave behind peace. High above the earth, where clouds gather in solemn clusters and winds stretch like invisible rivers, the sky holds traces of forgotten fires. Volcanic ash, so fine it floats for days, carries the breath of the earth across oceans and continents. It does not fall quickly nor loudly. It drifts like memory, delicate, weightless, and full of unseen power. In every pale wisp of ash there is a story, of eruption, of silence, of stone becoming dust. The sky remembers what the ground has let go. When a volcano erupts, the plume rises like a question into the atmosphere. It climbs higher than mountains, higher than storms, until it meets the coldest, quietest parts of the sky. There it spreads out, painting wide veils of gray and silver that shift with the wind. These particles, so small, so quiet, change the world in ways we do not always notice. They filter sunlight, cool the air, soften the colors of dawn. They remind us that even the smallest things can reach far and stay long. Long after the eruption has ended, the ash remains in the air, circling the planet like a whispered thought. Some of it falls gently onto distant fields, mixing with soil and rain. Some lands on mountaintops, caught in snow and ice, stored for centuries. Scientists who study glaciers find ash layers like soft black ribbons in the ice, marking the years when the sky darkened. These bands are the volcano's footprints in time, quiet and exact, telling us when and where the earth spoke. But not all ash is destined for the sky. Some falls closer to home, settling around the volcano's base, blanketing forests and rivers in silence. In those early days, the world feels paused, trees sag under the weight, water turns gray, creatures hide, yet beneath the surface something begins. The ash, full of minerals and memory, starts to feed the land. Rain draws its nutrients downward, roots reach upward. Slowly, life stirs. And in that stirring, the stone becomes a cradle for the future. There are places in the world where entire landscapes were sculpted by ash. The painted hills of Oregon, where soft bands of red and gold rise from the desert floor, are made of ancient volcanic dust, layered and pressed by time. In Iceland, black deserts of ash stretch between glaciers, their surfaces windswept and whispering. In Japan, rice grows in fields once buried by eruptions, the grain richer for the ash below. These places do not fear the memory of fire, they bloom from it. Volcanic ash is not sharp or heavy. Under a microscope, its particles look like tiny glass shards, formed when lava exploded into droplets and froze in the air. They are born of heat but cooled by flight, and because of their shape they linger. They hold onto air currents, ride jet streams, settle only when ready. This slow falling becomes a metaphor, reminding us that even what rises in chaos can return gently if given time. People once believed that volcanoes were the mouths of gods or doorways to other realms. When the sky darkened with ash, they saw omens, messages written in dust. And perhaps they were right in a way. For in that ash lies deep wisdom of change, of letting go, of cycles that stretch beyond our lives. Today, we have satellites and sensors, measurements and maps. But still, we stand in awe when the sky turns gray, when the light shifts, when we feel that ancient breath upon our skin. In places touched by ash, memory becomes part of the ground, fossils preserved in fine layers, footprints locked in time, stories carved not with words but with sediment and silence. In Tanzania, a trail of ancient human steps pressed into volcanic ash 3.6 million years ago still lies preserved. The rain did not wash them away. The wind did not erase them. They were saved by the same dust that once fell in fear, and now they speak gently of our beginnings. Even now, when volcanoes erupt and send ash into the sky, planes must reroute, engines pause, systems wait. The modern world, with all its speed and noise, still listens when the earth speaks in ash. It is a reminder that no matter how far we fly, we are still tethered to the ground, still shaped by the breath of stone. We live beneath a sky that remembers. And in remembering, the ash teaches us something vital, that what falls is not always lost, that what covers can also preserve, that silence after the storm can hold seeds of renewal. Ash, though born of fire, becomes the first blanket for rebirth. It settles softly like snowfall, holding warmth beneath its stillness. It does not demand, it only waits. So let us look upward now and then, not for thunder or lightning, but for the quiet veils of memory that drift above us. Let us feel the weightless wisdom of volcanic ash, the way it moves without hurry, the way it falls without harm, the way it becomes part of the story without needing to be seen. In that gentle dust, we find a truth as old as the earth, that even the sky carries history in its arms. Let's move now into the deeper layers of this quiet dust, where ash becomes more than a remnant of eruption. It becomes a thread that weaves through earth and time. Beneath the forests, beneath the rivers, beneath the streets of cities built centuries ago, ash layers lie hidden like soft whispers folded into the soil. Each one marks a moment when the earth exhaled, when mountains briefly broke their silence. Though the moment of eruption may be brief, its trace lasts for millennia. And those traces, when uncovered, tell stories of connection. Between earth and sky, between past and present, between silence and change. In Japan, researchers study the fine ash layers known as tephra spread across rice paddies and forest floors. Each one is like a date stamped into the land. From these delicate layers, they can reconstruct the history of ancient eruptions, even those that happened before human memory. The ash, like a patient historian, records without judgment. It does not exaggerate. It does not forget. And so the scientists gently peel back the Earth's pages, finding beneath each one a moment of fire now quieted into dust. Some ash is thick, blanketing the landscape in soft gray silence. Other times it is just a faint trace, barely more than a sigh. Yet both carry the same message, that change leaves a record. In the Andes in New Zealand, in the Mediterranean, entire ecosystems have formed atop ancient ash beds. The soil is rich there, so rich that farmers return again and again to cultivate the bounty left behind by forgotten eruptions. Tomatoes, grapes, olives, all grown in the arms of long-cooled fire. The ash once feared now feeds. There is a special kind of beauty in how ash moves through the world, unseen yet everywhere. After an eruption, it floats for miles, carried by upper winds, touching lands that never saw the volcano's flame. In Iceland, ash from eruptions has traveled across Europe, dimming skies over France, settling on lakes in Finland. In Alaska, layers of ash from Kamchatka's volcanoes drift quietly across the Bering Sea. And far away, in Greenland's ice cores, scientists have discovered ash specks from eruptions that occurred before any human language existed. These particles traveled thousands of miles and then froze in place, waiting to be found. But perhaps one of the most profound roles of ash is the way it captures moments in motion. When ash falls quickly, it can preserve everything it touches. Leaves, seeds, animal prints, even the outline of a sleeping body. In Pompeii and Herculaneum, cities frozen in time by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, ash became a sculptor. It wrapped around the shapes of daily life, tools, bowls, sandals, and held them gently for nearly 2,000 years. And in that preservation, something timeless emerged. A window into lives once lived, paused by ash, remembered through stone. Volcanologists study ash not just for its story, but for its shape. They look at the angles of the particles, the shine of their surfaces, the colors they reflect. Some ash is smooth, some jagged. Some glows faintly when viewed under special light. These small details help determine how the eruption unfolded, how fast the lava rose, how suddenly it exploded, how far the sound might have traveled. From this, they piece together the heartbeat of the volcano, not in fear but in fascination. Ash becomes their map, their language, their guide. In ancient times, people learned to read ash differently. Some saw it as punishment, others as a blessing. In Java, farmers learned to collect fresh ash and mix it into their fields. In Central America, the Maya watched the ash fall and timed their rituals to its rhythm. In parts of Africa, ash-covered soils are seen as sacred, fertile, protective, alive. These old understandings, passed down in stories and songs, reflect a deeper knowing that the earth, when it speaks in ash, is not ending something. It is beginning again. Ash even plays a quiet role in water. When it falls into lakes or oceans, it can shift the chemistry, awaken plankton, stir dormant life. In the Pacific, massive blooms of algae have been triggered by volcanic ash drifting from faraway islands. These blooms feed fish, nourish reefs, shape the ocean's balance. A single eruption, its ash spread thin across the sea, can tip the scales of life beneath the waves. What began in fire, high on a mountain, now feeds the quiet heartbeat of the ocean. And then there is the ash that returns to us through breath. During major eruptions, fine particles enter the air we share. They ride the currents above cities, filter through clouds, descend onto windowsills. Though often invisible, we breathe in fragments of stone, tiny records of fire. But they do not harm us, not always. In small doses, they remind us of our nearness to the Earth's pulse. They bring us into the story, make us part of the moment. And in that breath, something ancient passes through us. To walk across a land touched by ash is to walk on memory. To breathe air that once held volcanic dust is to share a moment with the mountain. The ash carries more than minerals, it carries time. It reminds us that nothing vanishes completely, that even the softest, most fleeting touch can linger for centuries. And perhaps in that lingering we learn something about ourselves. That we too are shaped by what falls softly. That we too carry the weight of moments no one else saw. So let us listen to the ash, not just with instruments or measurements, but with presence. Let us watch the way it settles on still leaves, the way it turns rivers silver, the way it holds stories without speaking. Let us see in its silence the beginning of growth, the promise of return. For in every flake of falling ash there is a reminder that the earth does not forget, and neither should we. Now let the ash settle. Let it drift softly to the ground, covering the world not in fear but in something gentler, reflection, renewal, quiet continuation. The eruption is long past. The sky has returned to its usual blue, yet the story lingers not just in memory but in the land itself. Wherever the ash has touched, a kind of silence follows. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of waiting. Beneath that quiet surface, the world is shifting, preparing. What was once fire becomes foundation. What was once chaos becomes possibility. On slopes once buried in ash, small signs of life appear first as dots of green. Mosses, lichens, and tiny ferns emerge like whispers from the rock. These first arrivals are not loud. They need no fanfare, but they prepare the way. Their roots break down the minerals in ash, their presence enriches the soil. In time, other plants follow, then insects, then birds, and then slowly, almost shyly, the forest returns. What began in fire, layered in ash, becomes canopy and shadow and song. And as life begins again, it does not erase what came before. It grows from it. A tree that rises from volcanic soil carries the story of the mountain in its sap. The fruit it bears holds the memory of minerals released by fire. A bird that builds its nest in that tree, singing at dawn, sings not just for today but for the long line of mornings that ash has made possible. Nothing is forgotten. It is simply transformed. Human hands, too, learn to live with ash. In towns rebuilt after eruptions, bricks are made from the cooled remains. Roads are paved with volcanic gravel. Fields are planted in rich ash-fed earth. And sometimes in small museums or quiet corners of homes, a vial of ash sits on a shelf, a reminder of what was endured and what came next. The ash is no longer feared. It has become part of the story, folded into daily life like flour into bread. Artists find meaning in it too. In Japan, some potters use volcanic ash as glaze, letting the dust of old eruptions melt into glassy patterns on clay. In the Philippines, ash from Mount Pinatubo has been pressed into paper, into sculptures, into silent, beautiful forms that speak of resilience. What once filled the sky with darkness now captures light. It is not just geology. It is memory shaped by hand, held close, given form. And even in the stillest places where ash remains untouched for years, it continues to work. Beneath its surface, microbes stir, water seeps in, minerals dissolve and rearrange. The earth, always moving, always breathing, continues its gentle work of becoming. And the ash, no longer falling, no longer drifting, becomes part of the soil, the stone, the story. In this way, it vanishes not by fading, but by belonging. Volcanoes themselves grow quiet after their moments of eruption. They return to sleep, sometimes for centuries, sometimes longer, but they are never gone. Their slopes remain, softened by wind, carved by rain. Their craters fill with water or forest or memory. Hikers tread across their flanks. Children play in the valleys they shaped. Life resumes, not in defiance of the volcano, but in rhythm with it. There is no grudge, only understanding. And for those who pause to look, the evidence is everywhere. A stream tinted slightly gray from old ash still caught in the sediment. A hill with layers of pale dust hiding just beneath the grass. A garden where the soil smells faintly metallic after rain. These are the quiet remains. They do not demand to be noticed, but they offer themselves to those who listen, to those who remember. There is a tenderness in how the earth moves forward after fire, not with urgency, not with rush, but with care. The ash becomes an invitation, a way for the land to start again, softer this time, more fertile, more open to what comes next. It is easy to think of eruptions as endings, but the ash reminds us otherwise. It is not the closing of a story. It is a comma, a pause, a gentle breath between chapters. And we too carry ash in our own ways. In our lives, in our losses, in the times when everything seemed to fall around us. But from those moments we grow. Not immediately, not without sorrow, but slowly, patiently, with roots that find their way through even the heaviest dust. We become landscapes shaped by fire and renewed by quiet. And we learn, like the earth, that silence can be healing. That stillness can be strength. That what falls may rise again in a different form. So as we close this story, let us not turn away from the ash. Let us see it not as a remnant of pain, but as a beginning made of endings. A softness born from intensity, a whisper following the roar. Whether it falls from the sky or settles in our hearts, ash teaches us how to begin again, with patience, with memory, with quiet power. And above us still, the sky carries its gentle traces, reminders that what once burned brightly now floats freely, touching everything in silence, asking nothing in return. Beneath the cities we build and the forests we wander, beneath the rivers that shimmer in morning light and the deserts that hum with heat, there lies a layer of earth older than memory, older than myth. It is dark and quiet, strong and unassuming. It does not rise to greet us, does not shine or sing, but it is there, always holding the world steady. This is basalt, the bones of the earth, formed in fire and cooled in patience, spread like silent stories beneath our feet. Basalt begins where few eyes can see. Deep beneath the crust, molten rock gathers in quiet chambers, thick with iron, magnesium, and the weight of time. It does not surge upward in haste. It waits, sometimes for thousands of years, until pressure and chance align. Then it moves upward, outward through fissures and cracks, reaching for the surface. When it spills forth, it does not explode in violence but flows, slow and thick, like honey made of stone. It spreads across the land in wide sheets, cooling into dark rock that glints faintly under the sun. You may have walked on basalt without knowing it, on ancient roads built by forgotten hands, on black sand beaches shaped by waves, across plains where nothing grows but time itself. Its texture can be rough or smooth, its edges sharp or worn, but always it holds the memory of motion. The places where it cracked while cooling, the bubbles that froze as gases escaped, the lines that trace the direction of ancient flows, all of it still there, etched in silence. The ocean knows basalt well. Beneath its waves, the seafloor is made mostly of this stone, stretching in vast, unseen deserts of dark rock. Mid-ocean ridges where tectonic plates drift apart like slow-dancing continents release new basalt every day. Magma rises, cools, and becomes the foundation of the sea. From these underwater birthplaces, the crust of the planet slowly grows. The Earth is rebuilding itself constantly, and basalt is the language of that rebuilding. In some places, basalt takes on strange and beautiful shapes. When it cools slowly and evenly, it can form hexagonal columns, tall, orderly towers that look almost handmade. The Giant's Causeway in northern Ireland, the Devil's Postpile in California, and Fingal's Cave in Scotland are all shaped by this quiet geometry. To walk among these formations is to walk inside time itself, to be surrounded by the slow rhythm of cooling lava, by the stillness that fire leaves behind. Basalt is not flashy. It is not golden like sandstone nor marbled like limestone. But its darkness holds a different kind of beauty, a strength that does not boast, a calmness that does not fade. It weathers slowly, resists erosion, endures where other rocks crumble. That is why ancient builders used it for temples and roads. That is why it lines riverbeds and anchors cliffs. It is not only the ground beneath us, it is the spine that holds the world upright. Sometimes, when the light is right and the rain has just passed, you can see the colors hiding in basalt. Subtle blues and greens, hints of rust and silver, tiny crystals glittering like secrets. These minerals form during cooling, shaped by pressure, by time, by the quiet chemistry of transformation. Inside every basalt stone is a galaxy of detail, worlds so small they cannot be seen without bending close, without truly looking. In the deserts of India, the Deccan traps stretch across the land like ancient pages turned to stone. Formed by one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history, this basalt plateau tells of a time when fire ruled the sky and the ground ran liquid. And yet today it is quiet. Crops grow in its cracks. Villages rest on its bones. The fire is long gone, but the memory remains, not in ash or flame, but in the enduring presence of stone. Basalt speaks slowly, but it speaks. It tells us that the earth is not still, even when it feels that way. That the ground we walk on has flowed, that the hills we climb once moved like rivers. It reminds us that solidity is not the absence of change, but its result. That strength can come from patience, that endurance is born from slow transformation. And as we walk over it again and again, rarely thinking of what lies beneath, the basalt holds us without question. It does not demand our gratitude. It does not ask to be noticed. But it is always there, bearing the weight of roads and rivers and rain, the quiet bearer of everything above it. So next time your foot touches a black stone path, or your eye catches the shimmer of dark rock in the earth, pause. Imagine the journey it took to get there, the rise from magma, the long cooling, the shaping by water, by wind, by time. Imagine the slow breath of the planet beneath you, and know that even the stillest ground has moved, that beneath the surface, the world has stories still unfolding in stone. Let us wander now through the hidden architecture of basalt, where strength lies in stillness and the past holds firm beneath the present. Though it lies beneath us, basalt is not forgotten. Its influence rises up into every tree that grows from its soil, every stream that cuts through its cracks, every mountain that balances upon its back. Beneath cities and savannas, beneath glaciers and grasslands, these bones of ancient lava continue to shape the world, not with motion, but with quiet presence. The story of basalt is the story of time stretched wide. When a volcano pours out a flood of molten rock, it does not always form peaks. Sometimes it spreads in layers, flat and far-reaching, like a dark tide washing across the land. Each layer cools, hardens, and waits. Then another flow comes, and another. Over centuries or millennia, these layers build plateaus, flat-topped giants made not of sediment or sand, but of cooled fire. The Columbia River Basalt Group in North America, for example, holds over 170,000 square miles of such layered flows, stacked like a geologic library, each stratum a chapter in the Earth's long breath. These layers are more than rock. They are memories of eruptions that no human witnessed, of magma that rose before our ancestors walked upright. And still, they remain silent, enduring, whole. In places they are hundreds of meters thick. In others they are worn thin, their edges shaped by wind and water. But always they speak the same language, one of slowness, of permanence, of gentle power that does not fade. When rain falls on basalt, it does not rush away. Instead, it seeps into small fractures, flowing through hairline cracks left by cooling. This slow journey carves out hidden paths, underground rivers and aquifers that feed springs and wells. In this way, basalt becomes a vessel for water, holding it like a memory of sky. Towns have grown around such springs. Crops have bloomed from the water basalt carries beneath the surface. What once was lava becomes lifeblood. And yet basalt is not only a passive stone. It shapes too. In Iceland, where young basalt meets restless glaciers and stormy seas, it forms cliffs and columns and caves. In Hawaii, it builds islands that rise from ocean depths, layer by dark layer. Lava flows from the Kilauea volcano stretch across roads, enter forests, reach the ocean's edge, and meet the sea with a hiss of steam. There, new basalt is born. The process is as ancient as it is current. The land grows as we watch, as we sleep, as we live. Sometimes basalt wears strange patterns, grooves, hollows, ridges. These are not decorations, but signatures of motion and cooling. The grooves show where lava once folded upon itself. The hollows mark where bubbles escaped and were frozen mid-flight. The ridges trace the last quiet ripples of the molten rock. These markings are not random. They are records of energy fatting into stillness. They are the fingerprints of fire settling into form. And then there are the columnar joints, those remarkable hexagonal pillars that rise from cooled lava like organ pipes in the earth. These form when thick basalt flows cool slowly and evenly. As the rock contracts, it breaks into near-perfect geometric shapes, each column fitting snugly against its neighbors. No human hand carves them. They arise naturally, from the physics of cooling, from the quiet negotiation between heat and time. To stand among these columns is to walk through a cathedral built not by builders, but by the planet itself. Scientists study basalt not only for its structure but for what lies inside. Tiny crystals, gas bubbles, and chemical traces hold clues to the Earth's interior. By analyzing these, researchers can determine where the magma came from, how hot it was, how long it lingered before rising. In this way, basalt becomes a messenger from the deep, bringing word from places we cannot reach, carrying evidence of the Earth's hidden processes. Even space knows basalt. The dark plains of the moon, called Maria, are ancient basalt flows. Mars, too, bears basaltic landscapes, shaped by volcanoes long gone quiet. These stones, so familiar on Earth, connect us to distant worlds. When we study basalt here, we understand not only our planet but others, how they cooled, how they formed, how they might have lived. Basalt, then, is not just earthly. It is cosmic. It is the language of rocky planets speaking across silence. And yet, for all its geologic grandeur, basalt is part of daily life. It lines roads. It fills railway beds. It is crushed into gravel, carved into statues, polished for countertops. People walk across it, build with it, decorate with it, rarely knowing they are touching the remains of fire. Basalt does not insist on being known, but when noticed, it offers a quiet awe. It tells us we are always close to the Earth's memory, no matter how far from volcanoes we stand. Beneath the farms and the forests, beneath the highways and hills, the basalt waits. Not for anything, not for anyone, it simply is. Strong, calm, complete. The world shifts above it, wars, winters, cities rising and falling, and still it holds. It is not unchanging, but it changes slowly. Weather wears it, roots break it, time softens it, and yet its core remains. This is the nature of the bones beneath us, not brittle but enduring, not silent but steady. Basalt does not rise for attention, but when the world trembles, it absorbs the shock. When the rains fall, it drinks deeply. When we build, it bears the weight. It is the unseen partner in everything that stands, and in that unseen role it becomes sacred. So let us honor it in small ways, by pausing on a path of dark stone, by listening to the hush of waves breaking on a basalt shore, by running a hand across the rough surface of a cliff and feeling the memory held in every groove. Let us remember that beneath all we know, there lies something ancient, something strong, something that once flowed like fire and now holds us like earth. Now we reach the final layer of this journey, where the basalt rests not only in the ground but in our understanding. It is no longer just rock beneath our feet. It is memory, stability, and presence. It holds the earth together quietly, and in doing so holds us. This is not a dramatic ending. It is a gentle settling, a final cooling of molten thought into calm recognition. The basalt has told its story, not in thunder or flash, but in form, in endurance, in the soft insistence of what stays. Across the world, communities have learned to live in harmony with basalt. In Ethiopia's highlands, farmers carve their fields into terraces along basalt slopes, guiding water slowly through the cracks, feeding crops that root in volcanic soil. In the Canary Islands, homes are built from basalt blocks, each one rough-edged and dependable, holding warmth in winter and coolness in summer. In India, temples centuries old rise from basalt bedrock, their carved surfaces still sharp after lifetimes of sun and monsoon. Everywhere, the stone serves not as decoration, but as foundation, something to lean into, something to last. And beneath these human layers, brick, wood, field, street, the basalt continues its quiet service. It catches the tremble of distant quakes, diffusing their energy gently. It drinks in rainfall and stores it. It resists times where with a strength born not of hardness alone, but of balance. It is not too brittle, not too soft. It gives a little, holds a lot. And this, perhaps, is its greatest wisdom, that to last, one must neither resist nor surrender completely, but bend where needed and hold where true. In some places, erosion slowly peels back the surface layers, revealing the basalt beneath like a secret emerging from the earth. Cliffs crack open, valleys deepen, rivers carve down into stone, exposing the old flows, the old bones. And here geologists pause to read the land's long tale. Each layer of basalt has its own texture, its own mineral fingerprint, its own era. To study them is to walk through time. Millions of years compressed into stone, suddenly visible, quietly waiting to be known. And what of the creatures that walk above this rock? What of us? We move quickly, we change fast. Cities rise in decades, technologies shift in years. But beneath all that speed is a stone that moved only once long ago and now stays. Perhaps that's why we return to basalt in ways we don't always understand. We walk on it in parks. We sit on it near rivers. We photograph it without knowing why. We find peace in its darkness, a comfort in its stillness. It grounds us, not only physically but inwardly. In places like Hawaii and Iceland, people speak of the land with reverence, knowing it is alive even when it sleeps. They do not take the basalt for granted. They see its story in every cliff and cove. They know that the smooth stones on the beach were once hot enough to boil the sea, that the gentle hills were once rivers of fire, that the stone beneath them is both ancestor and promise. And so, they tread lightly. They honor the land by listening to it, by building with care, by remembering that what lies beneath is sacred. Basalt in its silence becomes a teacher. It teaches us how to stay rooted even as the world shifts above, how to carry the memory of transformation without needing to shout, how to serve without seeking praise. It does not glitter like crystal, does not sing like birdsong, but it endures. It supports. It carries stories that cannot be spoken, only felt. And perhaps that is enough, perhaps more than enough. Imagine lying down on warm basalt after a long walk, its surface rough but grounding. You feel the heat it has absorbed from the sun, deep and steady. You hear the wind, the quiet hum of insects, maybe the distant call of a bird. But beneath you there is only stillness. No movement, no hurry, just the earth holding you with hands shaped by time. In that moment there is nothing else to become, no place else to go. You are where fire came to rest. You are where motion became peace. Let this be the soft closing of our journey, the realization that beneath everything that rushes, everything that demands, everything that fades, There is something that stays. Not to control us, not to limit us, but to support us, to carry us, to remind us what quiet strength feels like. The basalt does not speak, but it waits. And in that waiting, it teaches us how to listen. Beneath the crust of the earth, where the light cannot reach and the silence feels heavy with age, magma pulses softly in the deep. It does not scream. It does not surge. It waits, it warms, it whispers. These whispers are not sounds as we know them, but gentle movements, subtle changes in pressure, in temperature, in rhythm. The magma is not in a rush. It turns slowly in chambers as vast as mountains, swaying like molten breath. It holds the memory of heat, of creation, of all the beginnings the earth has known. Far beneath the mountains, below the forests and fields, there are places where the rock is not solid but alive with flow. These magma reservoirs are quiet giants, rarely seen, often imagined. Scientists peer through layers of stone using sound waves and seismic echoes, trying to glimpse what moves in the deep. And though magma hides from us, it always speaks, through the swelling of land, the rumble of earthquakes, the soft, rising warmth beneath our feet. It is the earth's way of murmuring that change, though invisible, is always near. Magma does not always rise to erupt. Much of it stays beneath, cooling slowly, forming granite or gabbro deep within. But when it does move upward, it carries stories. It brings with it ancient pieces of the mantle, gases that have not touched air in millions of years, crystals formed under impossible pressure. It carries the signature of its birthplace, and as it rises, it transforms. It meets rock and melts it. It absorbs water. It thickens, thins, branches. And still it moves, guided by the quiet call of release. The earth is not hollow, but it is not still either. It turns its magma like thoughts. It reshapes its insides with patience. In places like Yellowstone, the ground lifts and falls with the breath of a magma chamber below, reminding us that the solid land is not truly solid. In the Andes, long chains of volcanoes stand where magma has risen for generations, fed by a dance between sinking tectonic plates and melting stone. There is a pattern in it, but no urgency. The magma knows the rhythm, and it keeps it well. Sometimes magma forms what geologists call plutons, bodies of cooled stone that never erupted, buried forever beneath the crust. These become the roots of mountains, exposed only after ages of erosion strip away the upper layers. When we touch granite cliffs, when we walk across ancient batholiths, we are touching the quiet past of magma, its choice to stay rather than rise. Not all energy must become explosion. Some become support. And there are other whispers too, geysers, hot springs, fumaroles. Where the earth's skin is thin, magma warms underground water, turning it into steam that hisses and sighs through the surface. Iceland sings with these voices. New Zealand, Japan, Yellowstone all murmur with them. To sit near a hot spring is to feel the warmth of Earth's breath on your skin. It is the deep made gentle. The magma does not shout, it exhales. In some places, magma meets the ocean floor, building islands in silence. These underwater volcanoes rise from great depths, unnoticed until they breach the surface. Hawaii began this way, as did Iceland and countless others. A single thread of magma, rising again and again over eons, builds new land from the sea. What we now walk on, beaches, cliffs, fields of green, was once a whisper in the deep. Now it is home. And yet magma is not just a geologic force, it is a teacher. It reminds us of the strength in stillness, the patience in becoming. It shows us that change often begins unseen, that pressure builds slowly. That release, when it comes, is part of balance, not chaos. Magma waits. It listens. It learns the shape of the rock above. And only when the moment is right, only when the pathway is clear, does it rise. And even then, not always to erupt, but sometimes simply to warm, to shape, to linger. The minerals within magma are varied and beautiful. Olivine with its green shimmer, feldspar with its milky glow, pyroxene dark and sharp. These crystals form as magma cools, recording its journey. Some are born deep, others shallow. Some grow slowly into perfect forms. Others freeze in place mid-formation. Each one is a voice in the magma's chorus, a note in its long, slow song. And so, as we walk above this unseen world, we walk not in ignorance but in quiet companionship. The magma beneath us is not far. Just miles below, it moves and waits, carrying with it the Earth's oldest dreams. It does not demand our attention, but if we listen not with ears but with understanding, we can hear it. In the warmth of a rock, in the rise of a hill, in the sigh of a spring. The magma whispers, and the Earth listens, and so must we. Let us now drift deeper into the layered stillness of the Earth's hidden heat, where magma flows like thought and pressure forms purpose without noise. Beneath the crust, there is no sun, no breeze, no song of birds or stir of trees, yet something ancient moves. The magma is neither wild nor angry. It flows in slow spirals, in loops and chambers, folding and unfolding across centuries. It glows with its own quiet light, not to be seen but to be known. Its journey is not linear. It loops, swells, contracts, and waits. This waiting, this slow breath beneath the earth, is what gives the land its shape. Geologists speak of this process with calm respect. They measure the movement of magma by the rise and fall of mountains, by the shifting of faults, by the trembling whispers of distant earthquakes. Their instruments pick up signals that no ear could detect, tiny pulses in the crust, small changes in gravity, gentle bulges in the land. These are not signs of disaster. They are signs of life beneath the stone, of magma turning beneath us like the tide beneath the sea. In volcanic arcs, those sweeping curves of peaks that trace the edges of tectonic plates, magma rises regularly, each volcano a note in an ancient melody. These arcs exist because the Earth's crust is moving, one plate slipping beneath another, creating friction and melt, a quiet dialogue of heat and stone. The magma born here is rich with complexity. It carries water from the ocean floor, carbon from ancient shells, and minerals from deep within the mantle. It becomes more than just molten rock. It becomes the blended memory of the Earth itself. And when magma doesn't find a path to the surface, it cools within the crust. Over centuries, these hidden intrusions crystallize into solid rock, forming the roots of future mountains. These plutons and batholiths, once liquid, now lie still and cold, waiting for time and erosion to reveal them. The granite faces of mountain ranges, the cliffs that hold firm in storms, were born of magma that never saw the sky. They remind us that not every journey ends in eruption. Some transformations are inward, hidden, no less powerful for their quiet. The magma's chemistry shapes the way it flows. Some magmas are thin, hot, and fast-moving, born of basalt, rich in iron and magnesium. Others are thick, sticky, and slow, rhyolitic or andesitic, heavy with silica carrying more gas, more pressure. The type of magma determines the personality of a volcano. A shield volcano, broad and gentle like those in Hawaii, releases its lava slowly and often. A stratovolcano, tall and sharp, may sleep for centuries and then awaken with sudden force. But even the explosive ones are not reckless. Their energy builds over time, and their eruptions are the release of long-held breath. Magma also sculpts the underground world. Lava tubes, formed when the surface of a flow cools and hardens while the molten center continues to move, become tunnels through the land. Over time, these tubes empty and remain, hollow echoes of magma's passing. In some places, people walk through them, flashlights bouncing off rough walls, the air cool and still. These passages are the fingerprints of flow, the silent records of journeys made in heat and darkness. In other regions, pillow lavas form beneath the sea, where magma meets cold water and hardens instantly into rounded, bulbous shapes. These pillows stack atop one another in the deep, creating strange, soft forms from violent beginnings. They are among the oldest rocks on Earth, found in the ancient cores of continents and on the seafloor where new crust is born. Each pillow is a moment, a heartbeat of the Earth turned to stone. Some magma remains hidden for eons, its presence known only through indirect signs. A slight rise in temperature in groundwater, a trace of helium gas released through a fault, a tiny shift in magnetism. These quiet messengers tell us that the Earth is alive beneath its stillness. That motion continues even when all above seems frozen. And just as magma waits beneath the crust, there are parts of ourselves that move quietly, shaping who we are from beneath what we show. Cultures around the world have long sensed this underground presence. In myth, magma became the blood of gods, the breath of dragons, the sacred fire that created life. The Maori of New Zealand speak of Ruamoko, the god of earthquakes and volcanoes who stirs in the womb of the earth. In Hawaii, Peel shapes islands with her lava, both creator and destroyer, always dancing beneath the surface. These stories are not just fantasy. They are ways of listening to what cannot be seen, ways of honoring the whispers from below. Magma, though hidden, affects the air, the soil, the water. It shapes the land we walk on, the resources we use, the stability of the ground beneath our homes. It even influences the climate. Large eruptions, when they do come, send sulfur and ash high into the atmosphere, cooling the planet for years. These eruptions are brief compared to magma's long stillness, but their echo lasts. And even these dramatic moments begin with quiet changes, long before any smoke rises. To live on this earth is to live with the knowledge that we are never far from what is forming, that below us something old is always becoming something new, that the crust we stand on is a skin, thin, shifting, alive. And beneath that skin the earth dreams in magma, not restlessly, not dangerously, but with intention. It does not rush its work. It does not force its path. It moves when it must, and when it does, it changes the world. So next time you see a volcanic peak in the distance or feel the warmth of a hot spring beneath your hands, remember what lies beneath. Not just heat or pressure, but story. Not just molten rock, but memory and motion. And know that every stone beneath your feet at some point in the Earth's long history may have been fluid, glowing, alive. The ground holds more than weight. It holds whispers, if we only take the time to listen. Now let us return to the surface, not by rising quickly but by gently drifting upward through the warmth and silence of the Earth's deep breath. The magma that stirs beneath us has told its story in movement, in minerals, in the shaping of continents. But its final message is not one of fire. It is one of becoming. For what we call the deep is not far away. It touches us, supports us, teaches us, even when we forget it is there. Its heat warms our springs. Its pressure forms our gemstones. Its motion lifts our mountains. And most of all, it reminds us that creation is a patient thing. When magma reaches the end of its long journey, it leaves something behind. Not just the land we walk on, but the hidden resilience of the earth. A cooled lava field may look barren at first, empty and lifeless. But over years, mosses arrive, painting soft green across black stone. Then ferns, then grasses, and eventually forests. Soil forms slowly, grain by grain, from weathered volcanic glass and broken crystals. What was once a searing surface becomes a place of roots and shade, of creatures nesting and birds returning. The magma has done its work, and now it rests beneath a canopy of life. In other places, magma never reaches the surface but shapes the world from below. It pushes rock upward, forming domes and ridges. It warms the crust, feeding geysers and hot springs. It alters the chemistry of minerals, turning limestone into marble, changing graphite into diamond. Its presence is felt not as eruption but as transformation. It does not always break through. It simply moves the world around it until something new emerges. And in that subtle shaping, it shows us another kind of strength. The stones we carve, the gems we cherish, the cliffs we climb, they are all echoes of magma's path. The obsidian used by ancient peoples for tools and blades was magma cooled so quickly it became glass. The basalt columns that frame quiet coastlines were once rivers of heat frozen mid-motion. Even the granite countertops in kitchens began as deep, hidden chambers of slowly cooling magma. We live with these remnants daily. We sit on them. We build with them. We place our hands upon them. They are not only part of the Earth's story, they are part of ours. In the high Andes, where volcanoes sleep beneath snow, people gather near thermal springs to soak in warmth that comes from far below. In Iceland, homes are heated by geothermal energy, a gift from magma that asks nothing in return. In Indonesia, miners descend into volcanic craters to collect sulfur deposited by gases rising from magma, risking much to gather what the Earth releases. These practices are not acts of conquest, but of coexistence. They reflect an ancient understanding that the deep is not an enemy, but a partner in life. And yet, despite all we know, much remains mysterious. Magma chambers are hidden and their paths unpredictable. Scientists use satellites and sensors, computer models and chemical tests to try to understand them. But magma does not reveal all its secrets. It moves in the dark in its own time, answering to forces older than language. And perhaps that is fitting. Not everything must be explained. Some things are meant to be felt, like the hush before an eruption or the warmth of a stone at dusk. There is peace in knowing that the earth still moves beneath us, that its fire has not gone out, that we are part of a living planet, not a cold one. The magma does not rise to frighten us, it rises because it must, because change is its nature. And after each change the land heals, forests regrow, rivers reroot, people return. Life continues, shaped by the deep, never fully separate from it. So let us carry this knowing forward, not with fear but with reverence. Let us understand that beneath our fastest cities and quietest villages, the earth listens, the magma waits. It does not need to be visible to matter. It does not need to speak loudly to be heard. Its whispers are enough. They have shaped mountains. They have birthed continents. They have taught us the meaning of slow creation. And when we stand near a volcano, active or silent, or walk through fields of cooled lava, or feel the warmth of a spring rising from unseen depths, may we pause. May we feel the deep pulse of something far older than ourselves. And may we know in that moment that the earth is not finished. It is always forming, always becoming. Its magma still moves. Beneath the soil, beneath the stone, the magma whispers. It says, I am not gone, I am here, I am motion, I am memory, I am the breath that shapes your world. And in the quiet that follows, we listen. High on the horizon, where the sky brushes gently against distant ridgelines, lie mountains so quiet they seem frozen in time. They rise not with menace, but with memory. Their peaks are softened by wind, their slopes dressed in forests and snow, their silence profound. Yet beneath that calm surface there lingers a history carved in heat. These are volcanic mountains long gone still, dormant, resting but never truly empty. They are the sleeping giants of the earth, and they remember everything. Some of these mountains last erupted before humans recorded time. Their stories are found not in books, but in stone, layer upon layer of cooled lava, buried ash, ancient flows hardened into cliffs and craters. To walk upon them is to tread across a language etched into the ground. The soil is dark and rich, filled with the ghosts of fire and the roots of renewal. Trees grow thick where fire once raged. Water collects in calderas where once there was only flame and smoke. These mountains no longer burn, but they remember the blaze. Mount Mazama in what is now Oregon once stood tall above the land, a powerful volcano with a fiery heart. But one day, thousands of years ago, it erupted so violently that the summit collapsed into itself, forming what we now call Crater Lake. Today, the water is still, impossibly blue and deep. No fire remains, but beneath the lake's surface lies a sunken reminder of eruption, silence built on violence. It is beautiful now, peaceful, even sacred. Yet the mountain remembers. In Japan, Mount Fuji sits like a painted dream, symmetrical, tranquil, wrapped in clouds and legend. It has not erupted since the early 1700s, yet scientists know it still breathes. Deep beneath, magma gathers quietly, moving at a pace only the earth understands. Visitors climb its paths, light incense at shrines, watch sunrise from its peak. Few think of fire when looking upon it. But the mountain does not forget. Its rest is not death. It is the long exhale of something vast. These sleeping volcanoes are part of landscapes shaped not just by what they are, but by what they were. Their flanks hold old lava flows, now overgrown with moss. Their slopes are etched by rivers born from glaciers that came long after eruption ceased. Life has returned, slowly and completely as it always does. But the shape of the land remains volcanic, cones, domes, and ridges molded by molten memory. What the fire shaped, the forest now fills. In Indonesia, Mount Tambora was once a massive volcano known only to the sky and the sea. But in 1815 it erupted with such force that the world itself shifted. The ash cloud circled the globe, dimming the sun and cooling the earth. The following year became known as the year without a summer. Crops failed. Snow fell in June. And yet today the caldera left by Tambora sleeps beneath a canopy of green. Children play in the villages nearby. The air is sweet. The birds sing. But the mountain remembers. Even in their silence, sleeping volcanoes shape weather, water, and life. Their size alters wind patterns. Their presence gathers clouds. Snow lingers on their peaks long into spring, feeding rivers below. And in their deep roots, still warm, ecosystems thrive. Unique plants cling to volcanic soil. Rare animals find shelter in rocky folds. The land, though quiet, is alive with stories. These mountains teach us about time, not the ticking of clocks, but the breathing of eons. 1,000 years is a sigh. 10,000 is a moment of thought. While we rush and measure, the mountains wait. Their sleep is not forgetfulness, it is patience. Beneath their surfaces, magma may still pulse, gases may still rise, but they do not speak often. They listen. They store. They become more than stone, they become memory. And that memory is not just their own. Human stories are tied to them too. Myths and legends gather around their peaks. Communities grow in their shadows. Prayers are whispered in the winds that swirl near their heights. People feel something sacred near these sleeping giants, not just fear but respect. A sense that the earth is larger than any one moment. That silence can hold meaning. That rest is not absence. Sometimes these quiet volcanoes awaken. A tremor, a vent, a whisper of ash. But even then the eruption is not without warning. The land swells slightly. The heat changes. Animals move away. The signs are there for those who watch. The mountain, even in its rising, is slow, deliberate, never cruel. It does not strike, it releases. Its memory spills out in smoke, reminding us that it has always been listening, always aware. But most do not wake. Most remain still for centuries, becoming part of the horizon, part of the view. And in doing so, they offer something rare in a changing world: continuity. A place that endures, a form that persists, a silent witness to everything that rises and falls around it. The mountain sleeps, but it sees. So next time you glimpse a tall, still peak in the distance, remember this: it is more than rock. It is more than landmark. It is history made solid, fire made form, time made visible. It may not speak aloud, but it hums with memory. And when the wind touches your face and the ground beneath your feet feels steady, know that somewhere beneath the earth remembers. And it is resting. Let us walk now through the deeper layers of these silent mountains, the layers not of stone alone, but of stories buried in their bones. For a volcano does not stop being a volcano when it sleeps. It becomes something more complex, more layered. It becomes a resting memory. Its crater no longer glows but fills with rainwater, then with lilies and reeds, then with birdsong and reflection. The very opening that once released the earth's fire becomes a mirror of the sky. In stillness, the mountain becomes whole again. Beneath the forested slopes of sleeping volcanoes, soil rich with minerals nurtures entire ecosystems. Trees grow taller, thicker. Their roots reach into volcanic deposits, drawing up potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, all the remnants of ancient eruptions now transformed into food for life. Mushrooms bloom in circles across the floor, deer wander through the shade, and insects hum in the cool morning air. All of it made possible by what once burned. The mountain, even in sleep, continues to give. Some slopes are gentle, their curves rounded by time and wind. Others remain jagged, their peaks sharp, their ridges lined with stone where no tree grows. The contrast is striking: fire and forest, scar and moss, memory and renewal, all layered into a single view. These differences tell geologists when the last eruption may have happened. A rounded summit often means long rest. A sharper cone, more recent fire. But both types whisper the same truth. Even the fiercest flames leave space for rebirth. In places like Mount Rainier, the summit still holds glaciers. These vast rivers of ice creep slowly down volcanic flanks, sculpting valleys as they move. But beneath the ice, the rock remembers heat. Rainier has not erupted in centuries, but deep within, magma continues to breathe. Instruments detect slight tremors, subtle bulges, occasional gas releases. The volcano sleeps, yes, but the kind of sleep where dreams still stir. A gentle, breathing stillness. One that changes nothing, and yet prepares for everything. The animals know. Birds change their migratory paths when the land warms too early. Insects hatch at different times if gases shift from vents in the soil. Bears stir uneasily if the ground hums ever so faintly. The mountain speaks in signals most humans cannot sense, but life listens. It always has. The balance of mountain ecosystems is delicate, and these shifts, though minute, ripple outward like whispers through trees. And humans have listened too, in their own way. The indigenous peoples who lived near these mountains often held deep, respectful relationships with them. They did not see volcanoes as dead when quiet, but as elders at rest, sources of healing, wisdom, and caution. Some communities offered prayers, left small offerings, or told stories passed from generation to generation. These stories were not just tales. They were warnings and remembrances, embedded in language and land. They told of floods and fire, yes, but also of new rivers, fertile ground, and sacred growth. In Central America, the Mayans considered volcanoes to be the breath of the gods, sometimes calm, sometimes sighing, sometimes roaring. In New Zealand, the Maori named them with reverence, building legends around each slope, each plume, each tremble. The mountains were not feared, they were honored. And in this honoring was a kind of listening that modern science, with all its tools and satellites, has only just begun to understand. Satellite images show that many sleeping volcanoes continue to reshape the world invisibly. The ground may lift by millimeters each year. Gases once trapped begin to vent. Cracks widen ever so slightly. These small shifts tell scientists that the Earth is not done, that something still stirs. They do not call these volcanoes dead, they call them dormant. A word that holds room for return but does not promise it. A word that respects the unknown. And then there is the silence, not just the lack of eruption but the hush that wraps around these mountains like a second skin. Snow muffles the higher slopes. Mist clings to the trees. Footsteps are swallowed by moss. There is no sound of fire here, no smoke, no tremble. And yet the stillness feels alive, as if the mountain listens to itself, as if it is waiting not for drama but for its next shape. Every boulder tells a story of past eruption. Every ridge shows where lava once flowed. The cliffs hold evidence of landslides, of pyroclastic surges, of glowing rivers of stone turned still. And yet these same places now grow flowers. They host weddings, pilgrimages, quiet walks. Families picnic near lakes formed in old craters. Artists sketch the view from what was once a lava cone. Life fills the outline of old destruction with color and softness. And still the mountain waits. It does not hurry. It does not ask to be understood completely. It holds its secrets in layered stone, in magnetic shifts, in the chemistry of springs that bubble quietly from its base. Sometimes a scientist takes a core sample, and the layers of ash inside reveal centuries of eruptions, some large, some barely noticeable. These layers are like breaths in stone, a diary of fire kept in silence. To stand on a sleeping volcano is to feel time slow. The wind carries not just scent but story. The ground beneath your feet is not just stable, it is storied. The air is thicker with meaning, though no words are spoken. And if you close your eyes, you might hear something faint, not a sound, but a feeling. A warmth that rises from below, a kind of low memory. The mountain is not talking, but it is remembering. So when we speak of sleeping volcanoes, let us not speak of dormancy as absence. Let us speak of it as preparation, as reverence, as the long pause between breaths. These mountains are not past, they are ongoing. And the silence they hold is not empty. It is full of every fire that ever shaped them and every forest that rose afterward. Their rest is not an end. It is a form of grace. Now we come to the final turn in this slow and reverent path through sleeping volcanoes, and we begin to understand that their stillness is not an ending, it is a kind of wisdom. These mountains, once loud with fire and light, now hold their histories not in eruptions but in silence. They have become monuments to transformation, standing not for chaos but for the long arc of change. What once rose in smoke now rises in reflection. The crater becomes a lake. The lava field becomes a meadow. The ash becomes soil, and the memory of fire becomes the promise of life. In the Pacific Northwest, Mount St. Helens still bears its scar from 1980, a gaping reminder of the power beneath. Yet around its flanks the land is healing. Greenery creeps back into the gray. Elk graze where once ash fell thick. Lupins bloom in rings around shattered stumps. The volcano remembers what it did, but it also participates in what comes after. It becomes a living story, not just of destruction but of regrowth, of silence after sound, of peace following thunder. To those who live near dormant peaks, the mountain becomes more than background. It becomes part of the rhythm of daily life. They check the clouds that gather near its top. They note how snow clings late into summer. They listen for rumblings but also for the familiar hush. Some days the mountain disappears in fog, only to return the next morning like an old friend. Its constancy brings comfort. Its presence, though forged in eruption, now becomes an anchor of the landscape. There is something deeply human about these sleeping volcanoes. They reflect back to us the ways we too carry fire within. We have seasons of eruption, moments when pressure builds and breaks, when we reshape ourselves in a flash of emotion or change. And then, like the mountain, we rest. We cool. We rebuild. We grow things in the ashes of what came before. The sleeping volcano teaches us that peace is not the absence of intensity. It is what follows it when everything within has found a new form. In their rest, these mountains invite reflection. They ask nothing of us but presence. To walk their slopes is to feel a calm weight beneath each step, not danger but depth, a depth that comes from surviving fire and holding still. They have felt the rush of magma, the cracking of stone, the roar of ash into the sky, and they have let it all pass. Now they cradle forests and meadows. They hold lakes in their craters like polished eyes gazing skyward. They carry no regret, only memory. Even their silence teaches. In a world full of sound, full of urgency and noise, the sleeping volcano offers contrast. A reminder that not all power is loud, that not all movement is visible, that some of the most profound transformations occur in stillness. It is the quiet volcano, not the erupting one, that feeds roots, catches snow, grows forests, and shelters creatures in its folds. Its greatness is no longer an eruption. It is in what it holds together. The soil that forms from volcanic rock is among the richest in the world. Black, mineral-heavy, it nourishes generations of crops. Vineyards thrive in it. So do rice paddies, olive trees, orchards. What once fell as ash now feeds fruit. The cycle is long but complete, from fire to food, from eruption to nourishment. It is a lesson that even the most violent beginnings can lead to abundance, given time. And this abundance is quiet. It arrives not with spectacle but with patience, with the slow thickening of roots, with the return of birdsong, with the gentle unfolding of petals in a place that once glowed red with heat. The volcano gives its gift not quickly but enduringly. It rests for centuries, even millennia, and still it offers. Its stillness is not a retreat, it is an offering. For those who study volcanoes, even their sleep must be watched. Instruments measure swelling, gas, heat. But more than that, there is respect. Scientists do not treat a sleeping volcano as safe, nor as threatening. They treat it as alive, as something that once moved and may move again. And in that view there is humility, a recognition that the earth does not owe us certainty, only presence. So when we look upon a sleeping mountain, we see not a relic but a rhythm, a part of the earth's slow breathing. We see that silence is not absence, it is continuation. It is the next note in the earth's long music. And just as a lullaby carries calm within its pauses, so too does the volcano carry life within its rest. Perhaps one day the mountain will wake again, not in anger but in necessity. It will rise, release, reshape. And then once more it will return to silence. The cycle will begin again. Fire, then forest. Ash, then root. Smoke, then stillness. But today it sleeps. And in that sleep it holds the world softly, like a memory, like a breath. So let us not rush past these sleeping volcanoes. Let us not think them spent or silent. Let us walk quietly, listen closely, and remember that what lies still is often what has learned most. The mountain does not speak, but it remembers. And if we are quiet too, we might just hear what it has to say. Beneath our feet the earth moves, not always with tremors or eruptions, but with quiet, invisible breaths that rise through cracks in its surface. These cracks are not flaws. They are doorways, channels through which the deep exhales its memory, its warmth, its hidden chemistry. We may not always see them, but they are everywhere: rifts in the ocean floor, fractures in mountain ranges, narrow vents in fields and valleys. Through them, the earth speaks softly in gases, minerals, and warmth, reminding us that even in stillness, something below is always stirring. In places where tectonic plates pull apart like the mid-Atlantic ridge, the seafloor opens slowly, allowing magma to rise and cool, forming new crust. These rifts are not violent, they stretch the planet gradually, like the slow unfolding of a deep breath. Along these underwater cracks, hot fluids rich with minerals escape into the cold ocean. These fluids form hydrothermal vents, chimneys of black smoke rising in the deep sea, where sunlight never reaches and pressure is immense. And yet around these vents, life thrives, creatures with no need for light, nourished by chemical warmth. It is life born not of the sky, but of the earth's breath. On land, these cracks take other forms. In geothermal areas like Yellowstone or Iceland, steam seeps through the soil. Geysers erupt in timed pulses, hot springs shimmer with colors from heat-loving bacteria, and fumaroles hiss like the exhale of something ancient. Each of these features is a sign that the earth is alive below, that it breathes through fractures in its crust, letting us feel the pulse of what lies beneath. The water here smells faintly of sulfur. The air is warm, even on cold days. The ground hums softly. It is not dangerous, not always. It is simply alive. In the East African Rift Valley, the continent itself is slowly splitting. The ground is stretching, cracking, preparing for what might be, in millions of years, a new ocean. This process is not fast. It moves at the speed of fingernails growing. But the signs are there. Volcanoes align along the rift, lakes deepen, valleys widen. Villages rest beside the cracks, farms grow near them, and people live in quiet rhythm with the earth's breath beneath. There is no panic, only adaptation. Cracks in the crust do more than release heat. They offer passage for water, for gases, for minerals. They are veins in the earth's body. Through them, rain seeps downward, dissolving elements as it goes, only to rise again in springs enriched and warm. Through them, carbon dioxide and sulfur rise, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes with enough force to alter the air. And sometimes, in lakes above these fractures, gases can accumulate in the water, held in place by depth and pressure. When released all at once, as happened at Lake Nyos in Cameroon, they remind us that even the earth's quiet breath can surprise us. But more often, the breath is gentle. In Japan, narrow fractures called jigokyudani, hell valleys, release steam into forests and snow. Monkeys bathe in warm pools there, snowflakes falling on fur warmed by the earth. In Tuscany, geothermal vents heat greenhouses, power villages, and offer hot baths to weary travelers. In New Zealand, Maori people have cooked meals for generations in earth ovens set above steaming soil. These traditions speak of a partnership with the deep, a long-standing trust in the earth's warmth. Geologists map these fractures with care. They use satellites to measure tiny movements. They listen to microseisms, watch for thermal changes, study the chemistry of rising gases. In doing so, they trace the pathways of the planet's breath. But even without instruments, people have always known where the cracks lie. Animals gather near hot springs. Plants grow in patterns that follow geothermal lines. Birds nest near vents that offer warmth through winter. The Earth's breath attracts life, not just by heat, but by the quiet invitation it extends. And then there are the cracks we do not see, the ones that lie beneath oceans, beneath glaciers, beneath layers of sediment and ice. These are no less active. They feed underwater volcanoes, move continents, and release the energy that drives plate tectonics. The Himalayas rise because India presses northward, its leading edge crumpling and cracking, creating mountains from motion. Every mountain range, every valley, every basin owes something to these deep fractures. to the slow, steady breath of the earth below. Even earthquakes, when they occur, are a form of release. A sudden shift, a lurch of energy along a fault line, a crack remembering its purpose. While often feared, earthquakes are part of this breathing. Not the inhale or exhale, but the moment the breath catches, held too long, then freed. And like all breathing, it continues afterward. The earth adjusts, the land reshapes, and life returns. We build along these cracks, sometimes unknowingly. Cities rise above faults, roads cut across fracture zones, and in some places these features become part of the landscape's identity. San Andreas, Rift Valley, Thingvellir. Their names carry the history of motion, of slow stretching, of deep breath. They remind us that even the most solid-seeming ground is part of a system in motion, a living crust floating on deeper flow. But not all cracks are warnings. Many are gifts. Through them come hot springs that soothe and heal. Through them come minerals that form caves of crystal. Through them rise gases that shape our air, enrich our soil, and carry the scent of the deep. They are how the earth communicates quietly, steadily. They are not faults, they are conversations. So when you stand on warm ground or see steam curling from the earth or feel the subtle tremble beneath your feet, remember this. You are not standing on a still world. You are standing on a world that breathes. It breathes slowly but surely. Through cracks, through fractures, through its quiet, open wounds. And through that breath, it reminds us that life begins not just with motion but with connection. The earth does not break to destroy. It opens to share. Let us now slip further into the depths of this breathing earth, not downward through fire, but outward through the long, thin fractures where warmth and memory rise together. These cracks, these seams, are not only physical lines, they are the edges where change begins. Just as skin stretches to allow growth, so does the crust of the earth yield to slow shifts, letting breath rise from below. From afar, the land may appear still. But beneath the quiet fields, the gardens, the paths we walk, it exhales in gentle, persistent ways. In Iceland, the island rests atop the mid-Atlantic ridge, a place where two tectonic plates pull apart, inch by inch, century by century. The land itself is young, formed from lava that spilled through these widening seams. Along the rift, one can walk between continents, touch the edges of Europe and North America as they drift silently apart. And between these plates, steam rises. Hot springs bubble. The land steams with heat that took thousands of years to reach the surface. Each puff of vapor is a message from the deep, written in warmth, spoken in silence. Some of these breathings are visible in flashes, like geysers that shoot skyward in rhythmic bursts. Old Faithful in Yellowstone, Strokr in Iceland. Each follows a hidden pattern, a conversation between water and heat, rock and time. Beneath the surface, water trickles down into fractures, touches magma-warmed stone, and turns to steam. Trapped, the pressure builds, until suddenly it finds release. And for a brief moment, the earth breathes skyward, a soft, spectacular exhale. Elsewhere, breath emerges more quietly. In areas known as moffetts, carbon dioxide seeps steadily from the soil. It flows low to the ground, invisible and dense, pooling in hollows, nourishing certain mosses, affecting the growth of trees. In high enough concentrations, it becomes deadly, but in its natural balance, it is simply a breath, carbon exhaled from deep stone, rising to join the cycle of air and life. Even our own lungs echo this pattern. We inhale, we hold, we release. The earth does the same. Volcanic gas vents, fumaroles, may hiss and fume, staining rocks with yellow sulfur, crusting them with delicate salts. These vents are the Earth's pores, openings in the skin where energy escapes. They often mark the sleeping breath of nearby volcanoes, giving clues to what lies beneath. The gases, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, tell stories of magma close to the surface. Scientists measure their chemistry, their temperature, their rhythm. It's like checking a pulse. The mountain may not move, but it breathes, and those breaths, though unseen, are full of meaning. In the highlands of Ethiopia, the Danakil Depression lies along a rift that opens the earth's crust like a deep, dry wound. Here, cracks ooze brine and acid, bubbling through sulfuric pools in colors no painter could invent: turquoise, amber, rust, jade. The land is inhospitable yet breathtaking. Life here is reduced to extremes: microbes that thrive in boiling acid, wines that strip skin, salts that coat everything in crystalline memory. This too is breath, though harsh and raw. The earth breathes differently in every place. Yet even in less dramatic landscapes, cracks and vents shape life. In the forests of Yellowstone, hot springs warm the soil year-round, allowing unusual plants to bloom early or survive winters more gently. In the Azores, farmers channel steam into greenhouses, growing tropical fruit in a temperate climate. In parts of Turkey and Hungary, thermal waters flow up through cracks to fill baths where people soak, seeking healing, easing old pain. The breath of the earth becomes comfort, becomes cure. These cracks also shape rivers. Groundwater heated by magma rises through faults, mixes with surface water and forms thermal streams. In places like Rotorua in New Zealand or Beppu in Japan, these streams have been revered for generations. People gather near them not only to bathe, but to cook food in the warm soil, to share stories, to sit in steam-laced silence. There, the earth's breath becomes community. What was once feared becomes part of daily life, folded into rhythm and ritual. And sometimes, when the pressure below becomes too much, these fractures open wider, not catastrophically but with a subtle shift. A new vent appears, a hillside warms, an old spring begins to bubble again. These changes are not warnings, they are responses. The earth adjusts itself through these small openings. It does not always need eruption. It sometimes needs only to sigh, to loosen, to release. Just as the earth breathes through its cracks, so do we. When tension builds in our bodies or minds, we exhale. We find release. We stretch. The breath calms us, cools us, returns us to balance. The cracks in the earth perform the same function. They are not failures. They are the earth's way of healing, of regulating, of being alive without collapse. Even in mythology, the cracks of the earth held meaning. In ancient Greece, the oracle at Delphi sat above a chasm that was believed to release vapors from the underworld, divine breath that gave her visions. In Rome, volcanic vents were seen as doors to the gods. In Shinto belief, spirits inhabit hot springs and natural fissures. These beliefs were not born from ignorance. They were expressions of reverence. People saw the breath of the earth and recognized it as sacred. To walk near these places is to be reminded of the deep, slow processes that sustain our world. The breath that rises through the earth's cracks is part of a cycle that began before our time and will continue long after. It connects stone to air, depth to surface, past to future. It is not just geology. It is life. So next time you see steam curling from a forest path, or feel warm soil beneath your bare feet, or notice a strange stillness in the shape of a valley, pause. Listen. Breathe. The earth is not speaking in thunder. It is breathing through its cracks. It is releasing what it holds. And in that breath it offers us something precious, a way to stay connected, a way to remember that beneath all things, life moves gently. Now we come to the softest part of the journey, where the breath of the earth is no longer just a scientific wonder or a mythic thread. It becomes something intimate, something shared. These cracks, these fractures through which the deep exhales, begin to feel less like distant geology and more like quiet companions in our daily lives. We live above them, beside them, because of them. And even when we do not see the steam or hear the hiss, the breath continues. It rises in silence, carrying with it warmth, minerals, memory, and most of all, continuity. Somewhere in the Himalayas, a shepherd warms his hands near a vent that seeps heat through the rocks. He may not call it geothermal energy, but he knows its comfort. Somewhere in Tuscany, a vine grows sweeter because of warmth hidden in the soil. Somewhere in Iceland, a child swims in a naturally heated pool under falling snow. And somewhere else, a single flower grows from soil so dark, so mineral-rich, it glows faintly when wet. These are not grand eruptions. These are the earth's breath wrapped into the rhythms of life, unseen, yet everywhere. In the Andes, farmers plant crops according to the soil's warmth, which often maps the flow of heat from volcanic fractures far below. In Kenya's Great Rift Valley, pastoralists lead their animals near warm springs, knowing the grass grows earlier there. In Japan, entire towns are built around hot springs, onsen villages where people not only bathe but dream, age, and heal in waters warmed from within the earth. Here, the cracks are not boundaries. They are invitations. They say, the earth is open. Come close. We build homes near these breaths. We construct temples, bathhouses, greenhouses, stories. We cook with the steam, soak in the pools, harvest from the warmed ground. We do not always realize we are living inside a conversation. But the earth breathes and we answer, sometimes in science, sometimes in silence, and sometimes in gratitude. But cracks are not just physical. They exist in every system, every heart, every mind. And just as the earth breathes through its fractures, we too release through ours. We let out grief in sighs. We let out tension through long, slow exhales. We breathe deeply when words fail. We breathe together in meditation, in laughter, in awe. Our breath, like the earth, is a sign of life. And our cracks, like the earth, are places of becoming, not breaking. When we walk near geothermal fields, the air often carries a strange scent: sulfur, iron, salt. It is the smell of minerals returning to the surface, the breath of the ancient earth made tangible. To some it is unpleasant, to others it is sacred. In truth, it is neither. It simply is. A message not meant to please or warn, but to remind that this world is alive in ways we forget, that the ground we take for granted is part of a larger cycle, deep, molten, slow, and kind. The earth does not hide its breath. It lets it rise where it will. And in this we find a kind of freedom. We are not standing on stone that is cold or indifferent. We are standing on something warm, something with rhythm, something that exhales in patterns both ancient and new. In this way, every fracture is a gesture of connection, not distance. Even the most dramatic vents, the ones that hiss and stain and shift the air, are not threats by default. They are the earth speaking in its oldest language. They are the natural consequence of a dynamic interior, one that does not sleep, does not freeze, but flows. These are not accidents in the earth's design. They are essential expressions of balance. What cannot stay must rise. What rises must be shared. And what rises eventually settles. The steam drifts into mist. The warmth softens. The minerals crystallize. Over time, the crack may close again, sealed by stone or filled by roots. But the breath remains in the land. It becomes part of the story, part of the soil, part of the cycle. And in that quiet continuity, the earth becomes not a thing beneath us, but a presence among us. To sit beside a hot spring with only the soft splash of water and the low hum of steam is to witness the earth exhaling. It is to sit beside a living force and feel no urgency, only flow. In such moments, we do not conquer the land. We join it. We stop measuring, planning, nomming, and begin listening, being, breathing, together. So when you feel tired or disconnected or uncertain, remember this. Beneath your feet, the earth is always breathing. Through faults and fractures, through warmth and water, it reminds you that stillness is not lifelessness, that cracks are not weakness, that what opens can heal, and that even the deepest breath begins in silence. The earth breathes, and it allows us to live in the space between those breaths, not in fear but in wonder, not in haste but in harmony. We walk on ground that exhales, and that perhaps is the gentlest truth of all. There is a moment after every eruption when the world goes quiet, not the quiet of absence but of beginning. The fire has passed, the ash has settled, the sky has cleared just enough to let light pour through. In that silence, something stirs. It is not noise, not movement, but a shift in the breath of the land. The volcano has spoken, and now the world listens. In the hours following an eruption, everything seems paused. Trees lie buried beneath blankets of ash, their shapes soften like dreams beneath snowfall. Rivers run thick and gray, slowed by the dust of stone turned to powder. The air still holds the warmth of what has passed, even as the wind begins to move again. Animals return cautiously, their prints the first marks in the untouched layers. It is as if the earth, having said something loud and long, is now holding its breath to hear the echo. This silence is not empty. It is full of signals. The heat of the land can still be felt beneath the feet, radiating upward in waves that shimmer like memory. The ground remains soft in places, fragile in others. Beneath that surface, lava may still be cooling, hardening into basalt, shaping tunnels and domes, carving its own underground stories. The eruption may be over, but the making has just begun. Eruption is not the end of creation, it is the threshold. Above the blackened slopes, the sky begins to shift. Birds return, first in silence, then in call. Their songs are subdued as if testing the air. Insects emerge from crevices, and in the quiet, their wings make a kind of music. Soon, tiny leaves press upward from cracks, finding sunlight in spaces where none existed before. Life never truly left, it only paused. It waited for the heat to settle, for the dust to fall, for the stillness to speak. In places like Mount St. Helens, the silence after eruption has become a study in rebirth. Scientists watched as frogs returned to the lakes, as insects recolonized scorched ground, as lupins bloomed in rings of purple where ash was thickest. They expected lifelessness, but what they found was persistence. The seeds that survived did not mourn, they sprouted. The soil that seemed sterile became a nursery, and over time, what had been burnt became green. This soft silence, this lull between destruction and renewal, is one of nature's most generous offerings. It is where the land decides how to begin again, where it listens to its own cracks and sighs, to the slow cooling of its bones. It does not rush. Nothing here hurries. The plants do not demand growth, they emerge. The winds do not sweep the ash, they wait for rain to help. The birds do not flee forever, they circle, then return. Sometimes the silence lasts days, sometimes decades. In Iceland, entire valleys were covered in lava, their villages buried and fields lost. But years later, those same valleys hold new grass, new sheep, new children walking paths atop hardened flow. The land does not erase the past, it carries it. It reshapes it. The silence holds both memory and promise. In Japan, after Sakurajima's eruptions, the locals do not flee far. They brush ash from rooftops where masks for dust sweep their gardens. They speak of the volcano as a neighbor, not an enemy. And when it quiets, they breathe more deeply. They plant again. They walk again. The silence after eruption becomes not fear but peace, a time to resume. Geologists have learned to read the land's post-eruption silence. They study soil layers, track regrowth, monitor temperatures and gas release. But they also listen to what the surface does not say. A quiet landscape may seem still, but below, magma may be shifting. Steam may be rising. The volcano may be preparing again, or it may be resting for centuries. There is no certainty, only presence. And yet life continues. In villages near Mount Etna, vineyards flourish in volcanic soil. In the shadow of Vesuvius, olive trees root in ash-covered fields. What once roared now feeds. The silence becomes not only a breath but a gift. What the volcano gives back is not just space, it is richness. Not just silence, but possibility. To stand on newly cooled lava is to feel the breath of earth made solid beneath your feet. The stone is still warm, still forming, still speaking in its own way. The silence above is only the surface of a deep, ongoing story. It is the chapter where the land rewrites itself without words. And we who live on this breathing, erupting, healing earth are part of that chapter. We too know the silence after eruption, after loss, after change, after moments that shake us to the core. And we too must listen in that silence, not for answers but for beginnings, for the small signals that life is still near, that growth is possible, that what burned can also bloom. The soft silence after the eruption is not emptiness. It is the earth's way of opening its hands, of showing us what remains, of inviting us to watch as it becomes something new. And in that watching we remember. We too are landscapes shaped by fire, cooled by time, and reborn in quiet. Let us move gently now into the deeper layers of this silence, the part after fire where the world begins to remember itself slowly, without force. The volcano has quieted, but its story continues. Beneath the soot and fractured stone, beneath the rivers altered by ash, something stirs that is not fire but form. The landscape is reimagining its shape, not through eruption but through invitation. The soft silence after the eruption is not a void, It is the Earth's quiet plan for healing. After the ash falls, after the final tremor fades, the wind becomes the first to return. It carries the scent of sulfur, of scorched bark, of warm rock cooling. But over time, the scent changes. Moisture gathers in the air. Rains come, soft at first, washing the dust into the ground, softening edges, laying the foundation for new soil. Each drop carries with it the seeds of change. The earth is not in a hurry. It is waiting, listening to itself, choosing what returns first. Moss is often the first to respond. With no roots and little need for deep soil, it spreads like a quiet breath across cooling lava, finding hold in cracks and crevices. Its soft green hue is a whisper of life where everything seemed gray. Then come lichens, ancient partnerships between fungus and algae, able to live on bare rock, crafting nutrients from light and dust. These small forms are not loud. They do not wave, but their presence is the beginning of a forest, the beginning of everything. Animals return too, cautiously. Insects first, beetles, ants, moths. Then the creatures that eat them, frogs, small birds, rodents. Their tracks appear in the ash like tentative signatures. A feather dropped on scorched earth is a sign that silence is shifting. These early arrivals shape the soil with their movement, with their droppings, with their bodies. They are part of the plan, though they do not know it. The earth brings them back, one by one, like notes in a quiet melody. Human memory also returns to these landscapes. Survivors walk paths once buried, searching for the familiar in changed forms. Children play where fire once flowed. Parents tell stories of what the mountain did and what it gave afterward. Some build memorials, others plant trees. The volcano becomes more than a force of nature. It becomes a teacher. A presence that demanded retreat and then gave back space. A shape that once frightened and now simply rests on the horizon. And while the visible world heals, so does the hidden one. Underground, roots reach downward. Microbes begin to break down volcanic minerals. Fungi form invisible networks through the soil, connecting plant to plant, life to life. This network, delicate and unseen, is the forest's first language. Through it, trees will one day communicate, share water, warn of pests, offer comfort in drought. It begins in silence beneath the ash, long before the leaves appear. Volcanic soil, once formed, is rich beyond measure. It holds nutrients in abundance: iron, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. In places like Java, Sicily, and Hawaii, farmers plant rice, coffee, grapes, and taro in fields once covered in lava. The harvests are generous. The taste of the fruit carries the signature of the mountain. Even in dormancy, the volcano feeds its people. Its silence is not just rest, it is offering. And though the volcano is quiet, it is never disconnected. Beneath the cooled crust, magma may still churn. Gases may still rise slowly, invisibly. Scientists measure these signals, mapping the breath of the land. They place sensors along the slopes, studying every change in temperature, every quake, every shift in shape. Not to predict destruction, but to understand the mountain's rhythm. Silence does not mean absence, it means pause. The people who live near volcanoes know this truth better than anyone. They do not forget. They build with awareness. Their homes have metal roofs to shed ash. Their windows seal tightly. Their children learn evacuation routes, and still they stay, not out of stubbornness but reverence. The land is beautiful, fertile, alive, and the mountain, though capable of fire, is also capable of silence. A long, dependable silence that stretches for generations. And it is in this long silence that something rare happens: trust. The people trust the land again. The animals trust the forest. The plants trust the soil. It is not the kind of trust born from certainty. It is the kind born from coexistence. The mountain will do what it must. The people will prepare. And in between, they will live. They will breathe. They will watch moss become meadow, meadow become forest, forest become home. Even art returns in the silence. Painters set up easels to capture the new landscape. Writers describe the softness of ash underfoot. Musicians perform in amphitheaters carved from cooled lava. The silence is not only ecological, it is emotional, spiritual, creative. It is a kind of womb, a place where new things are allowed to form, where the land gives space for reimagining what life can be. And slowly memory softens. The eruption becomes a story, then a chapter, then a symbol, not erased but transformed. Just like the landscape, the people carry the fire inside them, not as fear but as knowing. They know what the mountain is capable of, and they love it anyway. They watch its slopes for change, they harvest its soil, they walk in its shadow not with dread but with grace. Because the soft silence after the eruption is not a punishment, it is a chance, a gentle reset, a moment when the earth, having roared, now whispers, begin again. And we, quieted by that whisper, do exactly that. Let us now rest with the land as it rests within itself, not in stillness alone but in transformation. The eruption is no longer recent. The sky is clear. The ash has settled into the folds of valleys, the edges of riverbanks, the corners of rooftops long since repaired. And yet the memory of fire remains not as fear but as form. The mountain stands older now, reshaped. Not ruined, not undone, only softened by time and the patient work of silence. This is the final stage in the volcano's story, not an ending but an enduring. The quiet is no longer tentative. It has become foundational. The grasses grow taller, trees mature. Their roots reach deep into mineral-rich soil, binding the ground that once flowed. Forests thicken. Their canopies filter sunlight into green-tinted shade. And through it all, the mountain watches, not with eyes but with presence. It holds everything that has come before, without needing to change what it is becoming. People build homes again, not where the lava ran deepest but close enough to remember. Roads curve around the old flows. Signs mark the eruption date etched in metal, wrapped in flowers. Children grow up with stories told not to scare but to connect. This land was once hot, their parents say, but now it grows our food. There is reverence in that truth and humility. The mountain no longer looms, it accompanies. Scientists still study it. They measure gases, survey the land's slow rebound, compare satellite images year by year. But their reports are quieter now, less urgent. The mountain has returned to sleep, and the world around it has rebalanced. In the labs, they label slides with names like post-eruption forest succession and long-term ashfall impacts. But the living landscape writes its own language in leaf and stone. The science and the silence walk together. And deeper still, beneath the surface, the volcano holds on to its core, warm, changing, listening. Magma continues to shift, not toward eruption but through cycles of cooling, forming new minerals, feeding the roots of mountains. Beneath the silence is movement, and beneath the movement is patience. The earth does not forget its power, but it learns to hold it gently. The volcano is not asleep, it is dreaming. Sometimes from the old craters flowers bloom, bright against the gray rock, defiant in their softness. These are not symbolic, they are practical. They take root in mineral-rich ash, their petals catching sun, their seeds carried on wind. But still, we can't help but see meaning in them. They are beauty where fire once reigned. They are color grown from darkness. They are a quiet answer to a loud question. In these places, healing is not fast, but it is real. Birds nest again. Rivers carve new paths through hardened stone. Frogs sing from reeds that push up through cracks. Even the lava fields, sharp and lifeless at first, begin to shimmer in spring with green. Not all life returns the same. Some species leave forever. Others arrive for the first time, finding opportunity in a land reborn. This is not restoration, it is reinvention. And through it all, the volcano says nothing. Its silence is full, not empty. It is the silence of holding space for what comes next, the silence of stone that once flowed, of roots that once burned, of skis that once roared, now showing stars again. It is the silence of becoming something new, not in opposition to the fire but because of it. The people who live near these places understand. They do not separate danger from beauty. They plant gardens on the edges of craters. They gather for festivals that honor both the eruption and the harvest. They walk the old lava trails with hands outstretched, feeling the texture of what once moved like water, now standing like sculpture. They teach their children that the land is alive, not safe, not tame, but worthy of care. And so the silence deepens, not as forgetting, but as layering. Each year adds more life to the ash, more roots to the soil, more stories to the land. The mountain is no longer only a volcano, it is a chapter in the story of the earth. a place where endings and beginnings touched and something gentle grew from it. The quiet is not what came after the eruption. It is what rose from within it. To sit at the edge of a cooled crater and listen is to understand that silence has many voices. The wind carries hints of sulfur still. The trees creak with age. The ground, warm in spots, holds a breath that has not fully exhaled. And you sitting there become part of that listening. You join the rhythm not of eruptions but of waiting, of growing, of returning. The mountain does not promise stillness forever. One day, perhaps, it will speak again. But that is not the question now. The question now is, what have we learned from the quiet? What do we carry forward? The answer lies not in fear, but in presence. In knowing that even after the fiercest fire, the world remembers how to bloom. So let this silence hold you. Let it teach you what the earth already knows, that peace is not the absence of power, but its transformation. That stillness is not stagnation, but preparation. That after the fire, there is always space to begin again. And in that space, we find something rare. Not just renewal, not just survival, but grace.